Top 6 Sunken Ships with Interesting Stories. Famous wisdom tells us, the one who owns the sea owns the world. In this video, I'll tell you about 6 sunken ships whose stories are even more interesting than the events that happened with the legendary Titanic. Ship Britannic. Everyone knows the Titanic, but few have heard of a similar ship, Britannic. In fact, it was the same Olympic-class liner. The construction of the Britannic was carried out after the sinking of the Titanic, and therefore the designers had to make some amendments to make the ship safer. Several additional boats were added to it. The walls of the boiler room, engine room, and other compartments that could be damaged in a collision with objects at the sea were straightened. After all these additions, the size of the ship turned out to be even larger than its predecessor, with an unfortunate fate, so the designers came out with an excellent cruise liner. But World War soon began. Therefore, the Britannic was confiscated by the government for use as a hospital ship. Unlike the Titanic, this ship remained afloat for more than 1 year, and only then crashed, blown up by a German mine left by an enemy submarine. Most likely, the death of the sea giant did not receive such widespread publicity because of the period when the disaster occurred and because of the minimum number of victims. Thanks to the precise actions of the team, only 30 people were killed on board, and about 1,000 were saved. Jacques-Yves Cousteau discovered the remains of a giant ship several decades after the crash and was amazed at the excellent condition. Since the 90s of the last century, several expeditions were sent to the place of the sunken ship. The last one was carried out in 2012. Lusitania ship. The Lusitania remained the largest ship of this type for several years, until the title was taken over by a vessel of a similar class called the Mauretania. This ship, like the previous one, was sunk during the World War in 1915. The Lusitania was destroyed by a German submarine, which caused quite a stir at that time. Germany was accused of violating international laws that prohibited attacking peaceful ships without any warning. As it turned out later, Great Britain, which is the owner of this vessel, was also hiding something in this situation. The fact is that the British used the Lusitania to transport ammunition in the hope that Germany would not attack a non-military ship. This large ship is currently resting at the bottom near the lighthouse in Kinsale. According to experts, the not very good quality of the materials used to build this vessel will not allow its remains to lie there for too long. Very soon, the Lusitania will collapse completely and nothing will remain of it. Ship Nuestra Senora de Atocha. The Nuestra Senora de Atocha, or Our Lady of Atocha, was a ship of the Spanish fleet that sank with perhaps the largest stock of treasures on board in history. This event took place in 1622. Initially, it was assumed that the ship would sail along the route Havana and Spain, carrying on board a huge amount of gold, silver, gemstones, tobacco, copper, and other materials that were highly valued at the time. On the way, the ship met with a hurricane. It destroyed the hull of the ship, which contributed to its subsequent sinking. It is not surprising that after that the Spanish yard at the state level more than once made attempts to find the remains of the ship and return all to the treasures, but all of them were unsuccessful. That all changed in 1985, when professional treasure hunter Mel Fisher discovered the sunken ship. Of course, immediately after such a find, several parties began to fight for the right to possess the lost treasures. The most amazing thing is that the most protected part of the ship of that time, namely the quarterdeck, was never found. It is believed that the most valuable treasures were located there. Ship Ouida. Moving on to the pirates' ships. It's worth starting with the pirates' ship, whose name is often not well known, Bellamy. Bellamy is considered the most successful pirate because during his career he captured a huge number of ships and had one of the greatest fortune, about $120 million by modern standards. Despite this, Bellamy has repeatedly admitted that he does not get any pleasure from plundering ships. Oh, isn't it a noble sea corsair? His ship, Ouida, fell into a terrible storm in 1717 and took everything to the bottom of the ocean, the bravest captain, his almost entire crew, as well as all the stolen treasures. 260 years later, Ouida was found using an old map drawn by the captain, who investigated the shipwreck in 1717. The inscription, the Ouida Galley 1716, was found on the rubble, dispelling any shadow of doubt. Since then, researchers have managed to get hold of more than 200,000 of all kinds of items from the legendary ship, including tons of gold and silver coins. Ship Queen Anne's Revenge. The Queen Anne's Revenge has become one of the most formidable ships in the history of shipping. It received this title thanks to the captain of the ship Blackbeard. In 1717, this legendary pirate used Queen Anne's Revenge as the flagship of his fleet, but after 1 year, it ran aground. The fate of the ship remained unknown for a long time. Only in 1996, researchers managed to find a wreck which presumably belonged to the Queen Anne's Revenge. However, the final identification took several more years. So for a long time, expeditions found all kinds of objects and wreckage, but none of them gave good reason to assume which ship they really belonged to. Only in 2011, the National Geographic Society concluded that they all really belong to the ship Queen Anne's Revenge. By the way, some skeptics to this day show distrust to this find. In fact, the wreckage will not be 100% identified until one of the searchers find an item labeled Blackbeard's property. Ship Prince Eugen. The Prince Eugen is the only ship to have survived the nuclear scorching heat with little or no damage. The heavy cruiser was launched at Kiel in 1938. First, he had to contribute to the victory of Hitler's naval forces. In 1938, he was personally present in Kiel for the baptism of a warship named after the Habsburg general, Prince Eugen von Savoyen, who inflicted a crushing defeat on the Ottoman Empire in 1697. Prince Eugen participated in many naval operations of the World War II, including the battle in the Danish Strait in May 1941 with the battleship Bismarck, the breakthrough of German ships across the English Channel in February 1942, and hostilities against the advancing Soviet troops on the Baltic coast in 1944-1945. After the end of the war, the ship was handed over to the United States and used in nuclear weapons tests at Bikini Atoll in 1946. The ship sank on the reefs of Kwajalein Islands, where it remains today. Don't forget to subscribe and like it. Thanks for sharing, and bye-bye.